Hey, what's up everyone? Johnny Archer from The Healthy Archer hitting you with another installment of Fantastic Fridays. And today's big. Today's big. We're doing quinoa, just some white quinoa. That's just dry quinoa. And keeping it real basic. It's super easy to cook. It cooks as easy or easier than white rice. It's not really a grain, it's a seed, so it's kind of tough to compare it to white rice as far as, you know, species of food go, but as far as the usage of it and where you can, where you can use it throughout all of your dishes is essentially replaceable with white rice, more or less. I also like the taste of white rice, so, you can't always do it. A couple important or interesting facts about quinoa. One is it's gluten-free, so if you've got any kind of gluten intolerance or gluten allergy, or you just want to kind of steer away from gluten a little bit, you're ahead of the game. It is high in fiber. 1 cup of cooked quinoa has about 5 grams of fiber, about 8 grams of protein, I believe, and it's a complete protein, unlike a lot of other grains. So essentially I'm just going to show you how to cook a real basic quinoa. I have a little bit that I just made about 15 minutes ago. Hopefully it turned out okay. So I don't have to walk you through the entire cooking process, and I'll show you what it looks like. But what I'll also show you is how you can kind of take pre-cooked quinoa and do something a little more exciting with it than just eat it as it is. Okay, so first off, all right. First off, we're going to just give it a good rinse. So right here, I've got about 2/3 of a cup of dry white quinoa. If you get other colors of quinoa, like I think red and black, they take a little bit longer to cook. They have a slightly different taste. I do prefer the white over the others, but everybody has their preference. So I'm just going to use like a little mesh strainer here. Any strainer really works. And I'm going to give it a good rinse. So you want to rinse off these things that are called saponins. They kind of show, I think, as some of the bubbles here. You can kind of tell when the water runs clean that the saponins are largely off. And the saponins are going to give it a bit of a bitter flavor too. So, and each batch of quinoa is going to have a different saponin content. So I bought certain batches before that have I've had to rinse a lot just to get the bitterness out of the final product. So, all right, we're getting there. So once I get this underway, I'll show you how to kind of instigate this process and finish it. I'm going to make just a real quick quinoa with some black beans, a little jalapeno, garlic, onion, and just try to make that taste good and exciting from an otherwise kind of bland and unexciting food, from a taste perspective anyways. I think it's a very exciting and healthy food that really everybody could benefit from consuming. So, all right, so I'm going to turn on this back burner. I'm going to start it in here. Just a regular pot. Get this up to 10. You can just throw it in now. So the ratio that I normally do, I don't stick with the standard ratios on quinoa. I think most of them are totally bogus. Most people say 2-to-1 ratio, water to quinoa. I say more like 1.25 to 1.5 water to ratio. So given that, 2/3 of a cup of quinoa would equal just under a cup of water. So I'm going to go probably, want to use some cold water here. Probably should have measured this in advance. That's just over a cup. Wow, this is exciting viewing, folks. All right. So that's just under a cup. Adding it in there. And what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit of salt. I'll add more later. But I like, you're going to have to season this at the end of the day anyways. So I'm going to cover it It's on fairly high heat right now, but I want to keep a tight eye on it because this will quickly go from no boil to rapid boil, and I want to stop it before it gets to a rapid boil because A, it's going to evaporate a lot of the water, and B, it's going to kind of blow apart the quinoa grains. I like the quinoa to be sort of contained as a seed, like as a round seed, as opposed to just sort of a bunch of mush at the end. Because when you overcook or rapidly cook quinoa, you can end up with sort of almost like a oatmeal with a bunch of the little curls that come off of quinoa. So maybe I'll show you just a little bit how. Hopefully this is. This looks pretty good. So this is one that I just cooked a little while ago. Maybe about 20 minutes ago. Totally cooked. And you can kind of see that the grains are unique, and they have this little, like, I don't know what that is, like a little tail almost. And I like for those tails to be around each of its original seed. It looks prettier, and they just kind of hold up more, so they do a good thing like that. All right, so I'm still keeping a tight eye on this. This will cook up pretty quickly, bringing it up to a boil, just like rice. Once it hits a boil, I'm going to bring it down to a simmer, and I don't want it to be an aggressive boil. I want it to be a simmer, and you know that it's actually a decent temp when the middle of the pot is boiling. The edges are going to boil first. That doesn't mean that the middle is up to temp yet. So I want to see some bubbles coming up from the middle and not just the sides before I bring it down to a low temp on the burner. All right, so I'm going to keep an eye on this. At the same time, I'm going to show you how to use some existing quinoa and maybe make something that I would just sort of casually make for a real quick lunch. All right, cool. Front burner on, mid temp. I'm going to start what I would normally suggest people do is do their cuts first. So I'm going against my own rules here, but this is just a red onion. I love onions, so I'm just going to probably over onionify it. All right, we got some slices there. This is a little jalapeno. Add some flavors, add some heat. I'll dice that up. Or actually, maybe I'll just go in little. So tip with jalapenos, after I cut this, well, you want to probably go inside of the jalapeno up. It will cut easier than if you use this, if you go exterior up. So that's tip one. And number two is you definitely want to wash your hands once you finish cutting these, because when you come and you touch your face or your eyes and whatnot, you will feel it and it will burn for a while. All right, that's coming up, and maybe I'll just do some maybe a little garlic action here. Just sort of a little bit of a rough chop. Don't need to be too precise. Again, just want to add some nice flavors to the end product. Now I'm going to wash my hands because I will undoubtedly touch my eye. Oh snap, how is this quinoa doing? Should probably be paying attention. Oh, I think we're hitting a boil right now. It's hitting a pretty aggressive boil, bringing it right down. And I can see bubbles coming up from the middle, which is key, which is what I just talked about, so we know it's up to temp. And right now, bringing it down, I'm going to check a couple times to make sure it's maintaining that simmer, but essentially I'm bringing it down to a near minimum on the burner, and I'm going to wait it, or I'm going to set the timer for 12 minutes. Now once the timer beeps for 12 minutes, I'm going to take it right off the heat and leave it covered for 5 more minutes. And from there, it's ready to go. You can flake it with a fork and just sort of aerate it and get the rest of the water out of it. And the quickest way to sort of dry it is to put it on a baking sheet if you were to use it in something cold. But otherwise, you can just sort of let it kind of cool on its own and then throw it in a whatever, your food or another dish to do that with. Oh, this is coming up. Yikes. All right, little olive oil. Onions first. So I often don't try to like glamorize this process too much and make my food look as aesthetically pleasing as possible. But I do really try to emphasize and get excited about people cooking on their own, because I really do believe that that a big step towards improving your health is cooking for yourself. That's not bad. First step to health, cooking for yourself. Boom. So however you can do that is awesome. And the other thing with quinoa, and I mentioned its fiber content, beautiful, little bubbles coming up. Bring this down even a little more. It's a little more aggressive than I'd like. Fiber content. Most of us are definitely lacking in fiber. We're not eating enough plant foods. Fiber only exists in plant foods, and obviously certain plant foods and less refined plant foods are going to have more fiber than others. Fiber is good for not just going to the bathroom more frequently and easier. It also is really good for your internal biome, so the status and the balance of bacteria and yeasts and all those other kind of microbes in your intestinal tract. So fiber helps feed the good bacteria in addition. And I think we're going to see a ton of research coming out in the next like 5 years, even 10 years, where we're seeing the importance of probiotics and gut flora. Your internal biome is showing, there's a ton of research going on right now, and it's pretty exciting. I think we're going to find a lot of ties to between your biome and diseases as well. All right, so just getting a little cook on these onions. I think it's a good time to get these jalapenos in there. And I'll add the garlic in just a bit. And then after that, I'm going to add the quinoa and some black beans. I'm going to give these a rinse. They are just canned black beans. I used them last night, or half the tin anyways. So I'm going to give them a quick rinse. And I just have those sitting in my fridge. Andy. Sherry, come here. Come here, buddy. There you go. Give them some black beans. They know where it's at. Sometimes I eat quinoa too. I give them a little bit of quinoa as well. Try to give them a lot of human foods, but healthy human foods. All right, garlic is going to go in. All right. Just getting the garlic and everything distributed, getting some hot oil on it, and getting a little cook on. Checking this quinoa out again. I try not to lift this up too much, because every time you lift the lid off, a lot of the water is going to come out. And I've made a pretty precise measurement as far as that goes, with the 1.25 water to 1.5 for each ratio for each part of quinoa. Black beans in. Probably a good time to add a bunch of salt. And maybe just to make things a little more exciting, I'll add a little bit of curry powder. Maybe a half teaspoon. A little bit of pepper. And little bit of red chilies, or cayenne, essentially is what this is. And if you want, you may as well, I'm going to add a little bit of turmeric. Turmeric is super healthy, but it's really staining, so I don't like to add it to everything. A little bit messy to work with. That was maybe an eighth of a teaspoon. All right. Okay, and then I'll just kind of add whatever amounts of quinoa that makes any sense. Add a bit. Toss it around. Maybe I'll just add all this. Boom. And just get all this tossed around. So pretty much at any point, this is good to eat, but I like to get a little bit of a cook on the quinoa, get a little bit of crispiness to it. I think it makes it taste a little bit better. And that's basically it. That's pretty much all you need to know for quinoa. And that's about it, really. Other tips you can do with this is, I mean, you can keep it in your fridge for, I don't know, probably up to 5 days. So you can do a batch and then just add it where you want it. You can add it to salads. It's a really good addition. You can add it to any kind of little like stir fry bean, something like I did here. You can add it to things like tacos, like I showed you last week with the fish tacos. What else could you do? You could have it as like a breakfast cereal even. You can pre-cook this and then add, I used to do this all the time. I used to add some maple syrup and some cinnamon and some walnuts in the morning and then mix it all together. It helps if it's kind of cooled down a bit as opposed to, I wouldn't do it right in the pot. And it's a super tasty breakfast as well. So it's super versatile from spicy to sort of medium right down to sweet. So you can really use it in a lot of applications. It holds well if you put it in Tupperware and you want to take it, say, to work or with you where you're going as a transportable food. And yeah, it's honestly one of my favorite foods and one of the healthiest and easiest to cook. That's tasting pretty good. Brilliant. All right, that is done. I turned off the wrong burner. That one should be off. This one should be on. Cool. So there we have, what do I call this? This will be a quinoa with black beans, jalapeno, onion, garlic. Don't know what I'd call that, but yeah. Super easy to make, provided you already made the quinoa in advance. It's like a 5-minute meal. Very healthy, tasty. You can use whatever spices you like. You can salt it to your desire. If you really want to take this to the next level, you can hit it with a little bit of lime or lemon juice right at the end, just to add a little acidity, or even some vinegar, like a white vinegar or an apple cider vinegar. Probably balsamic would be a little bit weird because of the coloration, but yeah. And that's about it. We've got 3 minutes left as far as this quinoa goes. I guess I'll just do a spoiler now. As soon as that 3 minutes goes, I'm going to turn off the burner. I'm going to actually remove it right off the heat. I'm going to set the timer for another 5 minutes. Once that 5 minutes is up, I'm going to take the top off and just sort of flake it with a fork and assess, and it should be pretty well perfect. And then from there, I'm going to let it cool down in the pot, or if I wanted to accelerate the cool down and sort of really get it into
into a format where I would use it in a salad, I would put it on like a baking tray and just spread it out so that it could all just very quickly cool. Okay, so I think that will be it for today. Again, check out my Facebook page. I'm in the process of making a knife skills set of videos, and I'll be sharing that with you, just to sort of get rid of any kind of questions you may have about basic cuts. And basic cuts and getting better with your knife skills makes your time in the kitchen a lot much more enjoyable and easier and less stressful, which I think will in turn cause you to cook more for yourself, improve your health. Until next time, take it easy.